I'm Rick Albert, and welcome to The Key to the City of Angels, the podcast where we unlock the secrets of Los Angeles real estate. With over 300 real estate deals under my belt, I've seen it all, from house hacking strategies that build wealth to helping clients close multi-million-dollar deals in one of the most competitive markets in the world. Every week, I'll bring you expert insights, market trends, and inspiring success stories to help you navigate the LA real estate scene. Whether you're a first-time buyer, an investor, or just curious about what it takes to thrive in the City of Angels, this podcast is your guide to making smarter decisions and achieving your goals. So grab your keys. It's time to unlock your path to prosperity in Los Angeles real estate. Hello, everyone. Another great episode of The Key to the City of Angels. I'm your host, Rick Albert, and I don't know if you're world famous, maybe California famous. Can we go with that? Is that allowed?
Definitely famous at home.
There you go. Famous at home. The home famous Sean Purcell. You're a business coach and coach for a lot of real estate agents, including myself. You do a great job. Thank you very much for that. As well as a designated broker in San Diego for Compass, where there's over 200 agents there.
Yeah, I have 300 in my office now. Yeah.
Nice. Very cool. So I'm really excited because I've been wanting to talk about this particular topic for a long time, which is in the news, over 70% of real estate agents did not close a single transaction in 2024.
Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of the big thing, because a lot of consumers don't know this. I bring it up and they're shocked. But what was your initial reaction when I brought this up to you a few weeks ago?
I actually was surprised by the jump. It's for a few years now, it's been over 50% don't do a single. And to go to 70% is, my first thought is, man, that is scary for the consumer, scary for the client.
Okay.
Most people don't know, I don't think, I'm so insulated. I talk to so many agents. But most people really don't know how to select a really good agent or why it's important, and end up with someone who just knocks on their door or recommended from a friend or without doing any research on someone they're about to hand, $1 million, $2 million in transactions. It's a little scary.
What I tell a lot of people, especially when they invest out of state, is I say, hey, go to Zillow, go to Agent Finder, and look up the agent, because oftentimes, because Zillow is tied to the MLS, all those sales are automatically generated. So you can see the actual volume
right
that an agent's doing.
Right.
And oftentimes I've noticed, and you and I have talked about this in the past, oh, they have a lot of followers on Instagram. I'm like, I haven't seen a correlation.
No. That's great. That means they're good at social media.
Right. And then they sell their course.
Right.
That's how they're making their money.
And even that at least shows you that they're involved in real estate, that there's transactions happening. Be the minimum thing I'd want to see. That doesn't tell me if good yet, if it's them or a team, if they understand your needs, if they're a match for you. This is like a very short-term marriage. You're going to be very involved with each other for a while.
Oh, yeah. I've noticed how personal it gets. People tell me, you start sharing stories, and especially on the residential side, when it's not an investor, you start going, it's why? I have clients, we just closed, 2 days ago. It was all about the backyard. That's why they bought it. And then I saw the backyard. I'm like, I get it. I'm not a super emotional person, but I get it. It's hedged, manicured, it's beautiful. I get all that. So why do you think there was such a big jump? Because even the year before that, we did start seeing a decline.
I think it still stems from the buyer lawsuits.
Okay.
So sellers, listing agents, I should say, who generally are, if people are trusting you to sell their home, that's usually telling you something. That they're not doing any business if you see them actually selling a home. They're used to showing their value. They're used to demonstrating to a client why they should be hired, and they're able to generate the trust that's so important. Buyer's agents, even good ones, have never had to do that.
Right.
The payment was coming from the seller, supposedly. It's all coming from the buyer, in case anybody doesn't know, right?
Right.
But they didn't have to discuss it. And when the law finally changed for the good, in my opinion, and forced buyer's agents to have to communicate their value, and create a trust with the client, and have the client actually sign a contract saying, I'm going to work with you the way a seller would, that wiped out a lot of agents. They didn't have that tool set. They've never known it before. It didn't happen right away. I think agents tried to hang on, but now we're seeing it. They're not getting business. They're leaving the business.
Yeah.
Even you can have great value and still not know how to convey it, to demonstrate it, which is why I come, thank goodness it keeps me employed as a coach.
Right.
You better have value first. There better be something you're doing that's going to help the client and make this worth their while.
That's really interesting you bring that up. So I was recently interviewed for US News, and they talked about this. She didn't know about the 70% of agents that didn't do business. She just knew that there was migration, agents were switching brokerages, and a lot of them are leaving. And I said, part of the problem is they don't know how to convey their unique selling proposition, right? The USP. Like, that's so important, because I always tell people, it's like, look, I'm the guy that can go in and say, look, the floor plan's not great, but here's how we can fix it. Here's things that we can do to add value. If you're looking for someone that says, oh my gosh, I love the paint color, that's not me.
And that's not a good agent. I'm sorry.
Right.
My joke says, look, what you want from me is someone who understands all the pitfalls, can protect you from all the problems, because we are negotiating multi-million-dollar deals here.
Right.
And someone who can negotiate like a pit bull. I'm not here to go to your pool party. If you want a friend, I'll get you a
My favorite is when I talk to like aspiring agents, and I'm like, well, why do you want to do it? Oh, I like helping people. I'm like, well, then go do charity work. Why do you want to do this?
You better have something compelling.
Yeah.
And Rick, I equate this a lot to being a doctor. I think a great agent is very close to being a doctor. The doctor takes care of your health, single most important thing there is. You would never go to a doctor and say, well, I'm going to choose who does my heart surgery by who I want to, barbecue with. I don't give a damn about barbecuing. I want to know you're really good at heart surgery.
Right. It's one of the few times people ask, like, well, how many times have you actually performed this surgery?
Right.
You don't hear that as much on the real estate side.
No. And you should, because after your health, the next most important thing is the storage of wealth, right? Your generational wealth, your legacy wealth. And that's what our homes are. That's how we retire. That's how we put kids through college. Speaking of charity, if you want to go bring fresh water to some village somewhere, this is the accumulation that we create to say, I was here and I made a difference and I did something. That's in people's lives. And that's what you're dealing with. This is really a big deal and really important. Yeah. And people put more time into choosing a phone plan. It's not conveyed. Can we talk inside baseball?
Go for it.
I think, and I hope I don't get in trouble for this, most brokerages and certainly most real estate groups aren't that interested in making sure people are qualified, agents are qualified. They don't care that 70% aren't doing a job, as long as they keep paying their dues.
You brought up exactly what I wanted to talk about. This is why you're awesome. Because I think it was Robert Ruffian, actually, of Compass, that said NAR, the National Association of Realtors, is not interested in top producing agents because they charge a flat fee per agent. They actually want more agents than them, regardless of what the business is like.
Right. It's a butts in seats kind of thing.
Yeah.
The more people we can get licensed, the more dues we can collect. And if everybody does one transaction, we don't care.
I wonder if it'd be interesting for NAR if they actually did like a charge per transaction instead. So maybe it's a flat fee of like $50 a year, whatever, but then it's like $2 per transaction. Because then they actually could focus on, okay, we want great agents and they still get their money. If you're a top producing agent, you're like, look, it's just the process of doing business. It just is what it is.
Right. They could definitely do that. I'm old and I'm biased. When I was young, I got a Series 7. That used to be the high stockbroker. You had a Series 7 license. It's really hard to get. And back then, they had something called the NASD, the National Association of Securities Dealers. That was not a government entity. That was something the stockbrokers created to be the watchdog. Because if you keep your mess cleaned up, the government will step in, and they only have one tool, a bulldozer. There's nothing precise about them. And you did not cross the NASD. If you did something wrong, they would be there, they would evaluate, and then they would do anything from fine you to yank your license and take away your livelihood. You did not cross them. We have nothing close to that in our business.
Right.
And so the Times say, I want to report this person. They try it, it goes somewhere, some file, there might be some hearing, there's nothing that comes about that makes people feel that they can trust the industry. And that's a problem we as the industry created. So, okay, whatever that is, your job as a client then is to find out who's the right agent for you. Take on the responsibility, because the industry, I'm sorry, is not doing it for you.
There's no vetting.
There's no vetting, there's no policing, for an agent to lose their license is so difficult.
It's like 10-year. Well, and the worst part is the exams are a joke, at least in California. I remember when I got my broker's license, and which is basically the same as a salesperson's, but just twice as long. Right. But they made changes to it, and it was all lender questions. And I'm reading this, I'm like, I'm applying for a broker's license to sell real estate, not mortgages or home loans. Why are these even questions?
Right. I don't know.
You know how many square feet are in a township? I don't remember.
I still remember roughly how many feet are in a square acre. I don't know. Why would I need to know that? It's all can be accessed on your phone.
Well, trivia night at the bar. What if it comes up? Then you're going to look like a rock star.
Right. Yes. And people listen to this that are not real estate agents, right?
Right.
So maybe we shouldn't be so flippant. I apologize. Fact is, we joke about the test.
Yeah.
Like new agents coming in, go take the test, learn what you got to learn to take it, and then forget it, because it has nothing to do with being a good agent.
100%.
What I would like to see, this is a far out concept, but actually I created quite a stir when I wrote about it like 15 years ago. We should be following the law firm model.
Okay.
I'm never going to count on the industry to create great agents or to vet great agents. It's just not set up that way. The firms should want to do that. The firms should have their own name, like a law firm. This is my name on this firm. It's not Compass or Century 21 or it's my name. And when you're out there, you're making me look good or bad. You want to come work here, it's going to be, you're brand new, 60-hour weeks. And here's a salary.
Yeah.
We'll pay you to become good. And after 2 years, you're either someone we're putting on partnership track, you start sharing in the profits, or we're going to let you go. We're not going to hang on to you to do 0 to 2 transactions a year. Clean it up yourselves. But again, the industry itself enjoys having many licensed people because they're all good for a couple of transactions over their 2 years, or they're on the home or something. And
yeah. So what do you think is going to happen, right? If over 70% of agents have not completed a single transaction, and there's always a small percentage of people who just have a license just to have a license. So like realistically, that 70% might actually be closer to 50 or 60. But we know that the brokerages oftentimes don't care as much because the cost for them is fairly low because everyone's generally independent contractors. I know there's different structures. So going into 2025, we're recording this towards the end of March, but even going to 2026, because I think it's going to be slow until 2026, when all the people who bought in 2022 with those higher interest rates, now they're going to be more inclined to move.
Right.
Yeah.
It's going to stay slow.
Right. Yeah. I think it's the new normal. Right. So I guess we'll do two different perspectives, one from the realtor, one from the consumer. So from the realtor perspective, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think there's going to be a pickup? Do you think eventually agents will be coming back?
No, I think we're going to lose a lot of agents over time. Yeah. And we need that.
Right.
So the other powerful force that's come in, we call fintech, right? It's financial companies that aren't interested in generally in retail brokerage. They're just, these are the ones who have the aggregator sites where people go and say, oh, I'm going to look for properties here. They create a lot of damage in our industry. They don't help anybody, but they've inserted themselves in the middle. And they will continue to do that, probably to the tune of 40% of all the business that's going to happen. That's what I coach for Tom Ferry. It's one of the people I coach for. He's saying 40 to 50% will be with them. Those are for the people who don't care. My house is a cookie cutter. I want, the lowest fee, and I don't really care. Or I got to move right now. Make me an offer. The offer may be 85 cents on the dollar, but I don't care. I have to move. Those people are going to be here. So that's going to eliminate a lot of agents who don't know how to actually create a presence in the community. Or have, like you do a lot of investment. You have an expertise that you're becoming well known for. These are the kinds of things that make someone in any business good at what they do and sought after. The people who are sitting around waiting for business to come to them, it's going to be really rough.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that, because you mentioned cookie cutter. So I had family that sold property, this is years ago, in Northern California, and they were in a totally cookie cutter neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And they interviewed a couple agents, and they're like, "Oh yeah, all the realtors are saying 400,000." And I'm like, literally on your street, a home sold for 375, and that one had a pool. Your house is worth 350. Like, it's so easy, so basic. They put it on the market. The first offer, 355. I'm like, and I've never sold a single home up there.
I wonder how it became so magical.
Right. And it's like, but I wonder, because you have areas like Los Angeles, areas like San Diego, where, yes, these are all technically tract homes, right? They were at some point, but there's been so many changes over the years, addition, remodels, pools, to where it's not as cookie cutter as it used to be. I've had homes where I, honest to gosh, thought it was going to sell for a lot more, and it didn't. I've also had the opposite. I priced it. I didn't realize how low I priced it, and all of a sudden it got bid up. It's ultimately what I tell people. It's like, look, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what I think, you think, what his estimate is. It's really whatever a buyer and seller are willing to agree to. Because there's going to be more emotion tied to it that has value that's way too subjective. So
I agree with that. And it depends a lot on the neighborhood. I mean, there's entire states in this nation where it's still pretty cookie cutter.
Right.
It's like in Los Angeles where you could go from two homes on the same street, they could be $1 million apart.
Yeah.
And pricing a home, one of the true skill sets of a good agent is part science and part art. Mm-hmm. And where you have these kinds of homes, they're opposite of cookie cutter, the more the art comes into it. Neighborhood, what do you know about what's going on, the history of the homes? There's a lot of knowledge and art that goes into that. But the people who know the best are the buyers.
Right.
Buyers know even more than the best agents because they're looking for a specific home in a specific neighborhood, and they've been in every single one that's similar. Yeah. That is comp. That is the price. When they say it's worth this to me, they're pretty dead on. That's what, and we often tell clients, people who are listening have probably heard this, the first offer is often your best offer. The reason is those people who are making the first offer have been beat out 2 or 3 times on the home they want. And we're still in a seller market that's ongoing to this day. They know what the home is worth, and they're not here to screw around because they've already lost 2. That's going to be a very good offer. And then in a couple of days later, you'll get the people saying, "Oh, I wonder if we could get it for." So it's nice to have multiple offers. I mean, a good agent, someone like you, is going to work those offers and get people to their highest point.
Right.
But I often find the first offer is a very good offer for that reason. The buyer knows what the home's worth.
And what I've noticed over the last, well, really ever since the rates started coming up, is buyers are getting pickier, right? Like before, they're like, well, when interest rates were 2, 3, 4%, they're just like, yeah, I like it. I'll live here for a while and call it a day. Now they're like, interest rates are higher, be it home prices didn't go down. So I'm thinking more long-term. I'm going to be here for 5, 10, 15 years even. Right. Those conversations didn't happen before.
And that brings us back to finding a good agent.
Right.
And make a big difference just in the questions they ask. Mm-hmm. The truth, and sometimes to help you self-realize something you need or don't need, and you didn't even know it. The agent's going to do that for you. And I'm going to go backwards a second because you brought up an interesting point. When we talk about price, and you have agents like the ones at your family's home, well, it'll sell for this. It'll sell for 4. It'll sell for 410. They're trying to buy the listing. That's what we would call it.
Oh yeah.
You have to pay attention. The price is not one of the most important things. If every home in that neighborhood is worth $375, I guarantee I can get $400 for you, as long as we do a $25,000 credit to the buyer's closing costs. You still got
Right.
it, but man, don't I look good selling it for $400?
And they get paid more because they're paid on the 400, not the 375.
And that's another one. The most important thing that you're asking an agent should not be their commission or their fee.
Oh, I know.
If I could demonstrate that I'm going to get 10% more for your home than any other agent, but I charge 5% more, is that a good thing or a bad thing for you as the home seller? You're netting more, right? So what do you care what I charge? What you care is what you're going to net. What am I going to be able to create for you? Those are the kinds of questions. But we still have, because we don't educate the public, they still ask basic questions like, well, this person's the lowest. They're the lowest cost.
Yeah.
My response to that is always, any agent who talks to you about what they cost or that you perceive what their cost will be is absolutely going to cost you.
Oh yeah. Some of the best deals I've gotten from my buyers is when there was a discount broker on the other end.
Right. They're a discount for a reason.
Yeah. Because they have to burn and turn. And that's usually what I explained to sellers. Like, I don't fault them for it. I'm always like, hey, look, full transparency, I even considered it. Because my thought was like, well, we're in Los Angeles, higher price points, I can just burn and turn. But then I'm like, I'm running the numbers. Because then one of the things because there's so many agents out there, it's actually a very high cost business, right?
Very.
Like, yeah, right. Like photography, like, yeah, you're spending a few $1,000s, but then you have broker fees. But the problem is, because there's so many agents, really your biggest cost is cost of acquisition of the new client. So the discount brokerage model, I was like, the numbers don't work. And then I'm looking and saying, well, I don't know any top producing agents in LA that are discount brokers. Maybe they're discount brokers, but they're selling the 10, 15, $20 million homes. I would do those I don't want to reveal that. I would consider 1% or 2% on a $15 million home.
Have
right?
the numbers and not just the percentage.
Exactly. And I think that's where some of these challenges are. And my guess is some of these agents out of that 70% thought they could be the discount broker, and it's not working.
No, the numbers almost never pan out. And we saw a very large firm that's now being bought because.
Man, you beat me to this. Damn it. I was just going to mention that. The conversion rate was like 1%. Super low.
The conversion was terrible. The income, enough people understand what's at stake that they're going to shy away from the discount person. And that's another place that I wish we could do more education. Like with a good buyer's agent, finding the home is not what you're paying me to do.
Right.
I will help you narrow down. If you found 4, I'm going to go. But again, your knowledge of these properties in the areas you work, especially if they're looking to buy one and then do a hack with an ADU or do an investment, that's invaluable. But that's in the narrowing process. You know, the idea of, well, let's all jump in the van and go look at 40 homes. Why would look around, find your neighborhood, I'm not you. I can't say, well, I can say this is the neighborhood I'd live in, but who cares where I'd live? That's not the point.
Yeah.
Most of the value I bring starts when we found the home. It's warning you off of things you may not have even seen or noticed yet. It starts with knowing the laws, what's coming, what's happening with the damn rent control, what's that going to do to you? It's knowing how to negotiate, how to understand who the other agent is and know ways of moving around and not just saying, here's the price we want, I'm going to counter the price, and not even look at all the other factors that you can work. Then it's preventing the 200 things that could go wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Minimum of losing in the house. You could be losing your deposit. You could be losing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in a lawsuit.
Yeah.
An agent is a lot more of an insurance agent than they are a real estate agent.
Right. And it was funny when I was showing clients homes when we just closed on, we saw a different house. I think it was in like Burbank. And I'm walking through, I'm like, there's no dishwasher here. And the agent I was showing, he's like, yeah, there's no dishwasher. And my buyer's like, I didn't even notice.
Right.
How pissed would they have been had we bought that and then be like, wait, there's no dishwasher? in a house. And it's fine. Like, what I tell a lot of my clients, like, look, I'm not the one buying the house. I'm not the one living here making the payments. Rarely, I should say, am I going to tell you not to buy a home. My job is to point things out. I always try to educate them. Hey, if you see the roof that's shiny, here's why. It means it's reaching the end of its life. Because I also know that if they go on open houses on their own, they can also spot these things out.
Right. You're educating them. An educated client is the best client for a good agent.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Because it means they can go on their own.
Right. I want you to understand all the ups and downs and ins and outs, because then you'll also understand why I am as good as I am and what I'm providing for you. Unfortunately, for most people, this happens every 10, 12 years in their life. They might buy or sell a home. So they don't know the cost. So I'm going to go the opposite way, because I've seen it. The agent is so important, and it's noticeable when it's done wrong. And I'll give you one example of an agent. I grew up with her. She was older than me, but when I'm in my church, she was one of the important people. Anyway, I go into real estate. I'm at the same firm as her. And she ends up telling me a story about a client who called her and wanted to sell her home. And out here, we have this area called Mountain Helix. It's a very nice, very expensive for the area mountain, but very inaccessible. And it's very old roads and these very expensive homes. This lady wanted to sell her home because her sister back in Indiana was dying. That's where they came from. And she said, I'm going to sell my home and take my equity and go back and be with my sister for whatever time we have left. My friend said, and she's now passed, but so I don't use her name. She said, of course, let me come. And so in the midst of doing her due diligence and getting the home ready to sell, they did an inspection of the septic system. In a place like that, you don't have sewers, so they have septic systems. The septic system was shot. It had been for some time. The property is landlocked, meaning it's nearly impossible to get equipment or anything in there to repair it. You're almost helicoptering the things in.
Wow.
The cost of repairing the septic would have wiped out most of her equity. This woman didn't even know she had septic, because the son of a bitch agent that helped her buy it didn't do their job.
Oh.
So agent didn't do their job, and now this lady can't sell her home and go be with her dying sister. What agents do is really important, and unfortunately, it only becomes clear when you see it done wrong. Yeah. And then it's devastating.
Yeah. I mean, I will admit, I see mistakes from agents, and I'm not perfect, but I see mistakes. Like top producers make mistakes because, but most of the time I see like big mistakes. It's usually the agents that don't do a lot of business. And I think it's more about the experience. So one of my mentors told me years ago, he's like, a lot of agents will learn something 1 year and then repeat it for 30 years. So they've been in the business for 30 years, but they really only have 1 year experience.
Right.
Because as far as education's concerned and experience, it really is transactional based.
Right.
That's where the education is.
And so it raises the question, what if I am a new agent? Am I just out of luck? No, but you need to be on a team. If you're hiring someone to sell your home and they're relatively new and they're on their own, who's backing you?
Yeah.
Who's backing them? These are millions of dollars we're talking about. Say right. You have a lot of energy, you should get on a team, and then I might hire the team. But actually interview the people you're talking to, because if something goes wrong, it goes really wrong.
Yeah. So then I guess the big question is, oftentimes I've been fortunate. A lot of my friends will use me, even though the idea is like, hey, I don't work with friends, but a lot of my sphere understands that I'm not only that I'm different, but that I treat the situation differently. I actually get a little bit more dressed up when we meet. And I've had friends say, Rick, you don't need to get dressed up. You can come in shorts and a t-shirt. I said, no, we're here to help you buy a house. This is Realtor Rick. I have Realtor Rick, Investor Rick, and Friend Rick. And each one will give a different opinion. Typically, Friend Rick will give an opinion that he will deny till the day he dies if you ever bring it up again. But it's stuff that needs to come up. But we do have people. It's like, well, yeah, my sister is a realtor. But then if you do this research, because we know the majority of agents aren't doing enough business, and they don't, and then you look them up on Zillow or wherever and find out, Yeah, she does. She did one deal like 3 years ago, but she's kind of expecting me to use her. How do you, as a consumer, how do you address that?
You find a good agent who says, I understand, there's a couple things we can do. If they're the same brokerage, I'll bring her in under my wing, can learn, she can get another transaction under her belt, and I'll give her a split of the commission.
Yeah.
Or if it's a different brokerage, I understand family loyalty, but I also understand this is a big deal, what you're about to do.
Yeah.
Let's pay a referral fee to your sister. We want to help her out. I think that's where you're coming from, right? You want to do something for your sister. So let's do something good for her. Let's just not do something good that may cost you your entire home.
Right.
But we have people that out to make the right choice, right? And a lot of it, I didn't demonstrate it there, but we already knew what we were talking about. A lot of it starts by asking more questions. Good agents ask a lot of questions. I think we started with that. And as a client, if you find yourself asking most of the questions, that should be the pause. Why am I asking all the questions?
Yeah. And I've always told clients, like, when you ask questions, if you're interviewing an agent, always ask open-ended questions. Because they're going to tell you what they want to hear. Oh, are you going to do professional photos? Yes. Not, hey, how do you navigate multiple offers? Are you expecting multiple? How did you get to this price?
What do you think is the best form of communication and why? I mean, a big part of the relationship is how communication happens.
Yeah.
You as a homeowner may like texts. You want one summary text a day. Agents will do there could be 100 different ways an agent communicates. You need, and I can tell you how I like, and then you're going to tell me that's exactly what I do.
Yeah, right. Oh, fun fact. I also love texting, and the agent's like 80 years old, probably still has a Nokia phone, but like, they'll figure it out.
You have to ask them. I love that. How did you arrive at this price? What do you think is the most important action you're going to take to get my home sold? What is the single biggest thing we should do to generate more competition for this property?
Right.
The basic questions like you started with. So can you show me 10 homes in the area that you've sold in the last couple of years? And maybe they don't. I cannot. But I'm on a team that's done these 40 homes. Okay, good answer again. I know that you're back.
Yeah.
Mind giving a younger person a shot. I just want to know that there's someone standing behind them saying, no, don't do that. Do this.
I had to do my very first client that I worked on my own. I asked him, and I was like, hey, what made you want to work with me? He's like, yeah, you looked hungry. And I'm like, you called me fat, thanks. But I knew what he meant. But it was also one of those where, like, yeah, you're not just working with me. My broker's been in the business for over 40 years. He's been an investor, developer. So he knew that I had all the same resources. I could ask questions. And that's exactly how the transaction went. We got the disclosures. I met with the team. We went through everything.
Right. You learn too. That's good.
Yeah, I'm all for working with a new agent. But yeah, you're right. I need the experience, especially on the investing side. But I remember we interviewed a couple agents last year when we bought out of state, and I interviewed two agents. One that was actually a top producer, like he does like, I don't know, 50, 60 homes a year. And another one that was a referral from another investor. And I don't think he does as much business, but we ended up going with him because as soon as we got off the phone, he sent me a text. Here's an example of what I was thinking for you. I mean, he just jumped on it. I'm like, crap. Next thing you know, we buy about $1 million worth of real estate with him.
That's a good agent.
Yeah, right. And he was on it. But I noticed in other states, negotiations are very different.
Yes. Yes. The Midwest, because things were cowboy land out there, and not in the good way.
Right. Like they're much slower pace. I'm like, all right, here's how I want to negotiate. Well, we do things like this. I'm like, I understand that, but I want it done this way.
Right.
And then also, and they get the money. And they're like, wow, Rick, you actually got it. I'm like, yeah.
Right. Because I know how to talk. I know how to. One of the things you do really well is probe.
Mm-hmm.
What is the client actually wants? What do they think they want? Where are they going to not be so concerned? How do I find out the best way to help my client? And still, I mean, it's not a win-lose. It's not a win-win either. It's somewhere in between. But a good negotiator figures that out, right?
Yeah.
You got me thinking also about when you're talking to an agent, and we're giving examples of a bad one versus a good one, but there's also neutral things, right? Sure. You can have an agent who does 60, 70, 100 transactions a year. You're probably not going to talk to that agent that much. You're going to be talking to someone on the team. That may be perfectly okay. There's nothing to do with good or bad. This is, do I have a team? I don't really care if I'm talking to the top person, just so my questions are getting answered. Or do I want that closeness? I want my agent then to kind of be my friend. Neither of those are good or bad. They're just different ways of feeling. And you need to know what you want, because that's going to help you pick an agent.
Right.
If you like the warm cuddlies, don't go with the person doing 100. It's an impressive number, but you're not going to get what you need out of that relationship.
Right. There may not be as much hand holding. I've noticed that with some of the top producing agents in our market that I've worked with, I barely talk to the agent. I'm talking to agent. It was like a 5-minute conversation at most. The rest of the time I'm talking to their transaction coordinators. I'm talking to their assistants. Even on negotiations for the request for repairs.
But it didn't make it a bad transaction.
No.
It's just different.
Yeah.
But client, you should know. And then here, I may be a little biased, but agent, are you in coaching? Do you have a coach?
Right.
You don't have a coach. What exactly are you trying to accomplish with your career? Because I need someone who's always growing, always learning, always becoming better. Not someone who says, I know enough. I can get by.
I will say I've noticed when other brokers are trying to recruit agents, if you mention your coaching, because I haven't really thought about moving, but agents, brokers just try to recruit all the time. But if they find out you're in coaching, it actually it boosts the value. They get excited because they know you're investing in it.
Right. You care about your business, your clients, and what's going to happen next.
Yeah. So going forward, do we think that there's good, because the big thing now is they call them teamerages, basically mini brokerages within the brokers, right? You mentioned joining a team. So right. I know when I was talking to this reporter, I was like, I think, and I'd love to get your thoughts, that a lot of these top producing agents, they're about to get way more market share. That's really what's going to happen. Because they have the resources, they have the best practices in place, and it's much easier for them to recruit both clients as well as agents to join the team. But I was kind of curious to see what you've been seeing, if that's a trend that's going to be happening going forward.
I definitely think team consolidation is a trend that's moving forward. I think part of it's been created by the blind eye or maybe ignorance of brokerages.
Okay.
What's happening is, so this is now from a management. I'm going to put my management hat on for a second.
There you go.
The brokerage is allowing, if not encouraging, people to come together and become a mini brokerage. They do everything like a brokerage, and they get to demand a higher split. The brokerage is not only losing money, but that team, that mini brokerage, has none of the cost and none of the risk of running a brokerage.
Right.
So it's not at all a good thing for brokerages, the way it's mostly set up. I don't think it can go backwards now, but I think some of this is going to be a bit retro. Some teams are not going to like what's coming because brokerages are going to realize we can't keep giving the store away. So you have this phenomenal team and we're going broke. You can start your own brokerage, which I did and would never, ever do again. Really hard and really risky.
There's such a little split.
Right. To make 5-8%, 10, whatever. I would again. But the team thing it's going to continue. It may not continue as wide open as it has been, because I think brokerages are starting to tighten down and say, wait a minute, we can't allow you to run a free brokerage inside of our brokerage.
Right.
Helps clients oftentimes. If you don't mind talking to different people, it's great to always have an answer. It's great to always have someone available to you that an independent agent can't always provide. And that would be wrong to expect it of them. I mean,
sure.
They're out taking their business.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting when I had to help someone sell a property in Northern California. So we interviewed 3 different listing agents, and one of them was the big team. And what I mean by big team, I mean they did double the amount of business as second place in that city. Wow. And their big pitch was, because they do so much volume, they have all this data. That was their big pitch. Was like, now they have way more information. They know what buyers want because they represent the majority of the buyers.
Right. There's a certain benefit to that. I mean,
we didn't end up going with them because at the end of the day, I was like, okay, well, what are you going to do to get my house sold? And the strategy was basically price it about 150 grand below what it was worth. And I'm like, and then they still wanted me to pay for like floor plans and all that. I'm like, and you want what? Versus I interviewed like another agent who was doing the same exact thing. And what ended up being partially because of the cost then. Because of if all things being equal, it's like, well, then I kind of have to. And in this particular agent's case, he was very good. He also had all the connections to do the remodel at significantly less. So it was all about, right, which was also a big deal. But it was just, I think that the teams, I agree. I can see a lot of liability problems with it, but I also think that it could grow to be much bigger.
Yes, agree, it will. And that when I'm coaching agents, and so this is for the agents listening, maybe, that's what I call the conveyor belt method. A high producing team is a kind of a conveyor belt. And if I'm not part of that, whatever's going on, there's a way to present it that makes you look good and the other one look bad, right? That's part of sales. I don't think real estate is very much about sales. There's no shelves full of little homes behind me that I got to unload, President's Day sale. This is about helping people make good decisions, and then they make a decision. I've been doing sales for 40 years. I'm pretty good at sales. I cannot manipulate you into buying or selling a home, right? I mean, I can manipulate you into buying shoes or, a little
right.
crap. So what is left is the experience. It's understanding the person, creating experience around something that is top 3 most stressful things a client will face in life is selling a home and moving. Top 3. When you get a conveyor belt, that brings certain benefits. You have people that you can talk to at all times. They have a lot of data. They get the job done. But it comes with minuses. This is cookie cutter. Every house is the same. You're the same, even if they're not. The other side of the coin is an agent or a partnership saying, look, if your home is just average and you're average and you think this whole thing is no big deal, I would go with the conveyor belt team. If you think your home is unique, if you think there's something special about it, if you think you're special and not like everybody else, then it's more like a Maserati. And I would not be going to the Ford dealership with my Maserati. I'd be going to a Maserati technician.
Right.
In the end, I think the most important thing that an agent can create, not that they do, what they do is solve the homeowner's problems. Do you want the most money? Do you want the fastest sale? Do you want the least hassle? There's all these things, and we got to find out really what's most important to the client. But outside of that, your job is to create an experience. Yeah. I don't want you to walk away and say, boy, you did a good job, but oh my God, I lost 15 pounds. That thing was so stressful. I want you to walk away saying, geez, I wish I had something else to sell. Rick was so good at self. That wins people.
Yeah. There's always that like running joke where the clients are like, wow, this was so easy. You made a quick 20 grand. And it's like, right. How many times have you heard that? It's like, no, there's so much. I mean, isn't it like there's like 50 to 60 people per transaction that's involved between underwriters? Like I was talking to someone because we're talking about different ways to run a business as far as real estate's concerned. And, they were talking about all these other people. So, you have to be careful because and a lot of this is on the buy side. It's like as a buyer, I'm already reporting to a lender, escrow officer, home inspectors, listing agent, buyers. I don't have time to start reporting to more and more people.
But you have to coordinate all of these moving parts.
Yeah, every showing requires 4 parties. Buyer's agent, seller, listing agent. I mean, it's rough.
Times then the buyer's family and
I remember I had to show my record is showing 19 homes in 2 days.
Oh.
And because they were flying in, and I was like, hey, I really recommend you actually hop in my car and we drive together. And like, oh no, our whole family's coming. It was a freaking caravan. I kid you not. And then I had to call agents ahead of time on some of the new construction homes, like, hey, we're seeing a lot of homes. Can your home be the designated bathroom break? Like, yeah, not a problem.
You have to think of that.
I had to make lunch reservations, and I had to find ones where there was actual like decent parking. Like it's weird. It's like, it's almost like an assistant status.
Well, some of it is, but what it mostly is an agent who understands the problem. For them, it was a problem, and says, I can create an experience out of that we may not want to see 19 homes in 2 days, but we will, and it's not going to be stressful.
Right.
That's a big deal, right? That's not something for the test. That's not something brokerages talk about, but that's what good agents do.
Right.
That's what to be looking for. What do they do for me in this very stressful thing? They need to protect me. They need to keep me informed. They need to answer my questions. There's a lot that goes on.
Yeah.
So when they say, for instance, boy, that was a lot of money, to me, it's always like baseball. Most people played baseball at some point, girls and boys. So you watch pro baseball and go, I don't know. Like that, they get paid a lot of money to just go stand in a box and have somebody throw a fastball at 90 miles an hour. It will completely change your tune.
Yeah.
It looks easy because you're not seeing all the stuff going on behind the scenes and the phone calls at 10 o'clock at night and the fixes that happened before you even knew there was a problem and all the experience you bring to hopefully prevent most of it from happening to start with.
Yeah.
It's a lot of 90-mile-an-hour fastballs. And, on TV, don't look that hard, but just the sound of it is scary.
So here's a question for you, because depending on the listing, some might argue, hey, you list the home on a Thursday, open houses over the weekends and escrow, and boom, you just made 20 grand in like a week. We all know there's so much that happens on the back end, and there's always stuff that happens after the fact.
Right.
If there's less agents, which means you're picking up more volume, could there be a structure where there will eventually become like almost like commission suppression? Like you don't need, because that's always been the big argument. It's like, yeah, the 2.5%, 3%. Yeah, yes, there's all these splits, which is, I think, part of the problem. Let's be real. If I'm a seller, when they're like, oh yeah, here's my value, or like the one I hate the most is when agents are like, well, just explain to the seller that, a third goes to taxes, a third goes to the, brokerage, and then there's my money. I'm like, when you pick a job and they offer you 100 grand, do you think about taxes? No, and you have all these tax write-offs. So calm down.
Right.
Your broker, you negotiate the split, not me.
Right.
So go negotiate a better split then. That's not my problem. Because at the end of the day, I'm still out 20, 30, 40 grand. Do we think that maybe in the future, there could be a chance, if there's less agents, therefore they can pick up more volume, that we might start seeing kind of commission suppression because they'll be able to make it up? I know it's a very long-winded question.
It's a difficult question. We're seeing it on the side. We're definitely seeing compression there. On the other side of the coin, I think agents are vastly underpaid already. Do you know what an agent gets paid? Any other form of agent? I mean, athletes have agents, writers have agents, politicians have, a lot of people have agents who look out. They get 10% minimum. 10% is what they charge to take care of the client. We are down at, wherever we are, and we can't be colluding, but it's
right.
less. And that's because of market. I mean, we have to answer to the market. We have so many agents. Most of them aren't very good, so they lower their price. Right. And that's just like the homeowner. Look, your home may be worth more, but just like me, you're subject to the market. If all the other homeowners are selling at $350, your home's worth $350. That's just what it is. We all have to answer to the market. And so as an agent, it's, we have that, third taxes third. That was something that was taught, that was come up with a long ago. But what isn't discussed is this person does have a job. Their workers' comp is being paid. Their 401k is being funded. There's a lot of things that comes with a job that, as an independent contractor, you are funding all of that. Is a lot of money going out. Plus all the education, the coaching, everything that you do costs money. So when you see what an agent makes, it's not nearly what the number says. It's like going to the store and saying milk is $8 a gallon. At the farm, it's only $2.50. Well, yeah, you got to drive to the farm. I mean, we have to pay for the trucker. We have to pay for the bottling. We have to buy yourself a cow. The milk's free.
Yeah.
You're not.
Do you guys in San Diego have the farms where you go pick your own fruit?
Yes, yeah.
We have that up here, and I think it's such a racket. It's like, let me pay you for me to enter, and then I have to do the labor, and then I'm paying a premium on top of it when I bring it back. Oh, but the kids love it. I'm like, damn it.
That's like
So
that.
genius.
Me, like, well, I'm cooking my own dinner, and then I'm gonna sit down and eat it, but I got to pay you, and you're looking for a tip. But that's here in real life. The statistics are very clear. People who sell their own home for sale by owners, on average, get 82 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, I believe it.
So I don't know. Yeah, this agent wants 2% or 5% or 4% or whatever it is. That's a lot cheaper than 18%, which is generally what to someone who doesn't have an agent.
Yeah.
What are you paying?
Yeah. Most of the time when I've talked to people about for sale by owner, I say, the problem is because you don't have access to the MLS, which means it's not being syndicated. The only people that are looking are either agents trying to get the listing or investors.
Who are going $7
exactly. Right. Because I remember as an experiment, I posted my condo back when Zillow had Make Me Move. So I was like, I'm kind of curious. So I posted it for sale. I did do about double what it was worth because I was like, well, yeah, sure. If someone's willing to pay it. And the only people that reached out were agents who were like, oh, yeah, I have a buyer, but I need to preview it first. And I'm like, so I'm like, please provide a pre-approval, all that. I just really want to make sure. Or it was investors who were very upfront, said, look, we are interested, but of course we have to buy it at a discount to make the numbers work, blah, blah, blah. It's like, those are the only people that were looking at for sale by owners because the average consumer is going on Zillow and all these other ones where it's coming from the MLS. And now that we can't do pocket listings, although that may change, that's being talked about again, which is a whole nother topic. We can talk about that when the rules kind of get leveled out, see what happens there.
The MLS is now all have to, but even more layers, I think, than that. You're right. First of all, it's not syndicated to the people who are actual buyers. And even if it was, as an agent, if my client said that I saw that for sale by owner, I'm interested in that. The first thing I'm going to do is talk to them about changing our commission structure.
Right. You still got to get paid.
Right. This seller doesn't have someone who knows what they're doing. My work is going to double. The liability is going to quadruple. People don't understand that because this isn't their business. Good. My client's an accountant. Well, I'm not an accountant. I don't understand your business. I just pay good money to make sure it's done right.
Right.
And generally, I'm going to hire the best I can find. I'm not going to go who's the cheapest doctor. Again, I'm not judging doctors by what they charge. That's the least thing I'm interested in.
Right. Yeah. I will say in a lot of industries that I've seen, when we're talking bigger dollars here, right? Like, yeah, do I pay a little bit more in meat because I had to go to Whole Foods versus Trader Joe's? Yeah, if it saves me a trip. But it does seem like on the real estate side, that tends to be the biggest pushback. I don't hear it as much. Like, you have no problem doing that, but you are totally fine paying $1,500 for a cell phone.
Right. For a cell phone.
Right. You know what I mean? Like conceptually, it's like, this is wild.
I don't think people understand something they don't do. Buying and selling done. And most industries do a good job of either promoting the intricacies and how tough it is, or at the very least confusing people with how difficult it is. Real estate does almost none of it.
Right.
It looks like, well, you drove me around and then we wrote an offer and then you didn't get me exactly what I wanted, but I got the home and now you want how much money?
Yeah.
That's not all what happened.
But it's also a much lower barrier to entry in real estate, which is a whole nother issue, right? There's a CPA exam that's really difficult. You go through medical school, you go to law school. So I think that's also part of the problem. It's hard to convey that value when our license literally says salespersons. It should say consultant.
It should say, and half the people that anyone knows has a license.
Okay. Yeah.
Not using it. It's like, But again, I'm kind of contrarian on this. I don't want to necessarily raise the barrier because more tests mean nothing. The whole thing is designed already to be a monopoly. We just want butts and seats to pay dues. I don't like that. But everything you just named not only has a lot more education, everyone has to go into a system with somebody else. Nobody just gets the degree and says, okay, I'm this now. You got to go practice, basically.
Right.
If people came into real estate and were interned, were put on a team to learn, if there was that would be the barrier to entry. Well, for the next 6 months, you got to work your butt off with this team before we even start talking about you doing business. Well, I don't want to do that. It seemed like I could just hang around and get, 2 transactions from people I know. Yeah, you are the problem.
Yeah. Especially in these higher price markets, right? You're not buying, you're not going to represent 2 clients at $80,000 a piece in the Midwest, but it's like, yeah, I remember we sold on the development side, we had sold a home in Beverly Hills for like $3.5 million. The agent barely did any business, but $3.5 million is a decent commission.
Yes.
And he's a family friend. So like you almost could if you're in that world. But for the rest of us, we're like, no, we got to do a little bit more.
It just, having been in it now almost 4 decades and being on all sides of it, the things that can go wrong are so scary.
I know.
And it's not seen by the homeowner, and it's not seen by a lot of these agents. And it's unbelievable to me that we haven't conveyed that better.
Yeah.
And why it just looks easy and people don't understand. Right, you just got an $80,000 check. Well, again, you're going to walk away with 30,000 of that, but it's still a lot of money to most people.
Yeah.
Here's to get there. Here's how many years I had to be in the business to gain enough experience and knowledge to prevent these problems from happening.
Yeah.
Again, I love the doctor analogy. No one goes to the doctor and says that surgery took 5 hours. $300 an hour, it's $1,500. You're paying for the 20 years the doctors put in to be able to do the surgery and make sure nothing goes wrong. You're not paying for the hours that they were in the operating room. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And what I have noticed recently, especially ever since the fires happened here in LA, when they're talking about price gouging and all these new laws, it's very clear now. It says the homeowner and the agent. Now agents are being thrown in the loop because like I had a client where we were considering listing it for rent and he wanted market rents. And then like I'm reading into this stuff and I'm like, not only can you not get market rents because of the price gouging laws, but now we're both on the hook. So I will not touch this with a 10-foot pole.
Right. I'm not losing
unless you fall. Yeah. Right. Whereas before it was, well, I'm just the broker. I'm just dealing with the transaction. Now we're starting to be held more accountable.
Good. I mean, accountability.
I agree.
If go back to my law firm model, if I could wave a wand, what I would do is make all of real estate hourly, just like an attorney.
Yeah.
I bill $300 an hour on the quarter hour, and every 2 weeks I send you a bill. You want to know how much do you want to spend? I'll put on the open house. You're going to pay for them. Some wonderful things would come from that.
Yeah.
Homeowners who think their home is worth more than everybody else's home. It's $300 an hour. You price it anywhere you want. I think you're honest and real quick.
Yeah.
Agents, I'm going to make all this money. Show me what you're doing. Every 2 weeks, I want to see the bill. I want to know what you did. Agents would get real honest real quick. And if the job's not getting done, there's no contract. Well, we signed for 6 months or I've been paid. I'm getting paid every 2 weeks at any time. And everybody has to be honest with everybody.
Yeah. And you get paid whether the home sells or not, which is one of the biggest problems that we have is like some of these sellers change their mind, buyers change their minds. Like, yeah, but I could have sold other homes during this time, but I spent time with you.
$5,000 and your time. Right. That's part of the commission. There is a reward for that. It's a risk and you get rewarded.
Yeah.
And there's a thing I'm coaching to a lot. I think you and I have talked about it. Things that are easy to measure get measured, and things that are hard to measure don't get measured. Which sounds like duh, right? But there's a lot of parts of buying and selling a home, or which home you decide to own, that are very hard to measure. I want to move closer to work so I can spend more time with my family. Okay, the payment's going to be $1,000 a month higher. Ooh, $12,000 is a lot. Well, I don't know. Is it? What's the value of spending an extra hour a day with your kids? It's hard to measure, and I can't put a measure, but what I can do is make a comparison. An extra hour a day with your kids, if you tell me that's not worth $12,000 a year, I'm going to reach across the table probably.
Right, because they'll know. The kids will remember.
Yes, But these are all, what is this agent worth? There's a lot of things that are hard to measure.
Yeah.
Right? What is it worth to have someone who's going to put everything up themselves, all their time, all their money, all their expertise, in hopes of getting paid? It's hard to, but there's a value to it without question.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Sean. Well, thank you so much for doing this. We talked about all sorts of things. If someone wants to get a hold of you, how do they do it?
Easiest way is probably email.
Okay.
Email is Sean, SEAN, at askpurcell, PURCELL.com. Sean at askpurcell.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you again, Sean, for doing this. I really appreciate it. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Hope we weren't too. If it's a great business, there are great agents out there.
We totally do it. Luckily I haven't gone gray. My hair's thinning, so I'm trading one thing, but I'll live. But yes, thank you so much for being on. Thank you everyone for listening or watching, and I will talk to you guys next week.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to The Key to the City of Angels. I hope you found today's episode helpful as you navigate the world of Los Angeles real estate. Whether you're looking to buy your first home, expand your investment portfolio, or sell in this competitive market, I'm here to help you succeed. Let's connect. Visit my website or follow me on social media to learn more about how I can help you achieve your real estate goals. And if you're ready to take the next step, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to work with you. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might benefit. Together, let's unlock your potential and make your real estate dreams a reality.